All right, let's dive in. Today, we're tackling something that can be pretty intense, prepping for a senior engineer interview. We'll be going deep with a guide from Indeed.com. It's full of common senior engineer interview questions and, importantly, smart sample answers to help you totally nail it.
It's really interesting. When you get to that senior level, the expectations really change. It's not just about how well you can code anymore. It's about leadership, thinking strategically, managing teams, being able to see the bigger picture.
Yeah, for sure. The guide makes that super clear. It's a whole other ballgame. And speaking of different levels, the first thing it digs into is technical skills. You got to show that you've mastered those engineering concepts, from the basics all the way to the really advanced stuff.
Right. The key here is showing them you're not just keeping up with the industry, but that you're pushing things forward. The guide actually talks about highlighting your experience in things like systems engineering, automation, and optimization. I mean, think about it. Those are the skills that let you build and implement those really complex systems, automate processes to make them as efficient as possible, and always be improving things, striving for that peak performance. So it's not just what you know, it's how you've USD that knowledge to make a real impact.
So if you're listening, think about your strongest technical skills. Could you walk someone through a project where you use those skills? Maybe you had to solve a really tough problem or even come up with a brand new solution.
Okay, so imagine this. You're in the interview, and they ask you about a time you had to optimize a system for scalability. What would you say? You could tell them about a project where you used automation tools to handle a huge increase in data, and how you made sure that system could handle even more growth in the future. It's those kinds of real examples that show off your expertise.
Exactly. It's not just saying, yeah, I'm good at that. It's about actually showing how you used your skills to get things done. And speaking of getting things done, the guide really stresses this shift that happens at the senior level. You're not just doing individual tasks anymore. You're leading entire projects and teams.
Right, you got to step up as a leader. Own those big, complex projects. The guide uses a great example, leading a product redesign and using the latest technologies to do it. That kind of scenario needs more than just technical skills. You need to know how to build a team, set goals, handle problems, and deliver a successful product. They're looking for that leadership journey.
And it's not even just leading, it's managing that whole project life cycle, right?
Yeah.
The guide even mentions things like agile and lean. Those are huge in engineering.
Yeah, but it's not just about knowing the buzzwords. You have to understand how those methodologies are actually used in real senior level projects. That's what makes you stand out. For example, you could talk about using Agile to break a massive project into smaller sprints, getting constant feedback to keep everything moving, or how you use Lean to eliminate waste and streamline processes to save the company time and money. It's about showing that you can use these frameworks to get results.
You're speaking their language, letting them know you're already thinking on their level. But before we go any further, I think we need to talk about something the guide really focuses on: communication and problem solving. We all know engineering isn't always smooth sailing, right?
Oh, absolutely. At the senior level, it's not if problems come up, it's when they come up. You have to show you can handle those tough situations. Imagine this, you're leading a team, the deadline's approaching, and suddenly a critical part of the project fails. What do? The guide has this example of a senior engineer. They rallied their team. They worked through the weekend, not just to meet the deadline, but to exceed it. That's resilience, dedication, and the ability to inspire people, even under pressure. That's what makes a senior engineer stand out.
Yeah, that story really highlights how those soft skills, they're just as important as the technical stuff when you're a leader. You're not just coding anymore. You're guiding a team, talking to stakeholders, making big decisions under pressure.
And the best way to show off those skills is not just by saying you have them, it's by telling good stories. Think about a time when you faced a major setback on a project. How did you deal with it? How did you tell your team and the stakeholders about the problem? What did you do to find a solution? Those are the stories that will make you memorable and show off your leadership.
Right. It's about turning those tough experiences into look what I learned moments. But even with the best leadership and problem-solving skills, there's one more thing that's super important for senior engineers: continuous learning.
You got it. This field is always changing.
Yeah.
So you have to be comfortable with that change. And even seek it out, that's key. It's about going beyond just reading industry stuff and going to conferences. It's about trying out new technologies, contributing to open source projects, maybe even mentoring others to share what you know. It's that passion for always learning and growing that really stands out.
The guide even talks about taking online courses. I
Mhm.
think that's a great way to show initiative. You're not waiting for someone to tell you what to learn. You're going out and finding that new knowledge and those new skills yourself. It's like saying, hey, I'm not just here for the job, I'm here to master this.
Exactly. And that mindset, that's what separates a senior engineer from someone who's just okay with how things are. It's that drive to always push the limits, explore new things, to never stop learning. That makes you really valuable to any team.
Okay, we've covered a lot. Technical skills, leading projects, communication, problem solving, and always keep learning. But before we get to some of the tougher questions in the guide, let's take a quick break to let all that sink in.
Sounds good. Welcome back. We're diving deep into what it takes to crush those senior engineer interviews. Using this awesome guide from Indeed.com, you'll be walking away with some serious confidence boosts, I guarantee it.
I'm definitely feeling more prepared already, looking at these next questions. One thing that jumped out at me was how important flexibility and adaptability are. It's not just about having the right answer. It's about showing you can think on your feet, handle those curveballs that always seem to come up.
You're so right. One question that really highlights this is how do you manage project changes?
hmm
Because let's be real, in engineering, things are always changing.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the guide encourages you to embrace that change, right? To show that you're not afraid of a little uncertainty and even use those unexpected changes to your advantage.
Exactly. It's about showing that you can reassess priorities, adjust your approach, and keep the project moving forward even when things get a little chaotic. A great way to do that is by sharing a real example from your own experience. Maybe you were leading a project where the client suddenly changed everything, or a key technology you were relying on became outdated overnight. How did you handle that pressure? How did you communicate those changes to your team? And how did you keep everyone motivated and focused?
Okay, so it's not just saying I'm adaptable. It's about proving it with a real story. A story that shows your problem-solving skills and how you lead under pressure. But adaptability isn't just about handling unexpected changes, is it? It's also about being resourceful, finding creative solutions when you have limitations.
Absolutely. The guide even has a question about a time you had to implement a cost-saving measure on a project. This is where you can really show off your strategic thinking, that you can balance technical brilliance with practical things like budgets and deadlines.
I love that. It's like saying I can build amazing things, but I can also do it smartly and efficiently. Which brings us to another key aspect of senior level engineering, mentorship. The guide has a lot of questions about your experience leading and developing others. It's clear that companies are looking for senior engineers who can not only guide their teams, but also help develop the next generation of talent.
It's not just about your own work anymore. It's about raising the bar for the whole team. The guide even asks, have you ever taken on a mentorship or leadership role? This is your chance to show how you've helped others grow and develop their skills. Maybe even share a story about someone you mentored who went on to do great things.
I bet that kind of story would really stick with interviewers. It shows that you're not just focused on your own success, but on the success of the people around you. Speaking of success, another question that caught my eye was, how do you encourage creativity and innovation in your work?
This is where true leadership shines. It's not just about handing out tasks and managing timelines. It's about creating an environment where people feel comfortable experimenting, taking risks, and coming up with those groundbreaking ideas that really make a company stand out.
So it's about creating a culture of innovation, where people feel like they can challenge the status quo, push the limits of what's possible. But that can be tough, right? How do you balance that encouragement of creativity with keeping projects on track and meeting deadlines?
That's a great question, and it's one that senior engineers deal with all the time. It's about setting clear goals, giving people the resources and support they need, and then giving them the freedom to explore different approaches and solutions. Sometimes that means embracing a little bit of, shall we say, controlled chaos.
I like that.
Yeah.
Controlled chaos. Because innovation often comes from unexpected places, right? It's about creating that space where those brilliant ideas can spark. But it also takes a certain level of trust in your team, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You have to trust that your team members have the skills and the drive to find creative solutions, and that trust goes both ways. They need to trust that you'll have their back, even if their ideas don't always pan out perfectly.
It's all about building that strong foundation of trust and collaboration, which ultimately leads to better results for everyone. Now, about motivation, the guide asks a question that I think gets to the heart of what drives a senior engineer. What motivates you in your role?
That's such a powerful question. It gives you a chance to connect with the interviewers on a personal level. It's an opportunity to share your passion, your vision, what truly gets you excited about the work you do.
Because at the end of the day, senior engineers aren't just driven by a paycheck, right? They're driven by a desire to create, to innovate, to solve tough problems, to make a real difference in the world.
Exactly. And if you can express that passion clearly and convincingly, that can really make you stand out from other candidates. It's about showing that you're not just looking for a job, you're looking for a mission, a purpose, a place where you can really thrive and make a meaningful contribution.
Now, we've talked about adaptability, resourcefulness, mentorship, fostering innovation, and even finding your motivation. But there are a couple of questions in the guide that, I gotta admit, made me gulp a little. The ones about explaining complex technical stuff to people who aren't technical, and the one about owning up to your biggest engineering mistake. Those feel a bit intimidating, don't they?
I get why those questions might make you a little nervous, but honestly, they're great chances to show off some really valuable skills. For example, explaining a technical concept to someone who doesn't have a technical background. That's crucial for communicating with stakeholders, clients, even team members from different areas.
It's like you're bridging the gap between the technical world and the everyday world, right? But how do you do that without oversimplifying or losing what you're trying to say?
That's where storytelling comes in. Instead of using all that technical jargon, try using analogies or metaphors that connect to something your audience already understands. Like if you're explaining a complicated algorithm, you could compare it to sorting mail or baking a cake. It's about finding those relatable connections that make something complex seem simple and interesting.
That's a great tip. It's like taking something that might seem scary and making it approachable, maybe even fun to learn about. But what about the question about your biggest engineering mistake? How do you talk about that without sounding like you're making excuses or dwelling on past failures?
Honesty and humility are key here. Don't try to sugarcoat it or pretend you've never messed up. Everyone makes mistakes, especially in a field as challenging as engineering. What interviewers are really looking for is your ability to learn from those experiences and come out of it as a stronger, more insightful engineer.
So it's not about the mistake itself. It's about what you learned and how you use those lessons in future projects.
Exactly. And it's a chance to show that you're committed to always improving, which is something they really value in senior roles. It's about showing that you're not afraid to admit your weaknesses and that you're always looking for ways to grow and develop your skills.
Okay, so we've tackled some pretty tough questions, but I feel like we're just getting warmed up. What other gems does this Indeed.com guide have for us?
All right, we're back and ready to wrap up our senior engineer interview prep deep dive. We've covered a ton so far, from showing off those top-notch technical skills to leading teams like a pro. And now we're getting into the questions that really set those senior engineers apart. The ones that make you think strategically about your career, the industry, and your impact.
Yeah, one that really stood out to me was, can you explain an instance where your technical proposal or plans were rejected?
Mm.
And how you handled it? It's kind of a tough one, isn't it?
It is, but it's also a really smart question. Because honestly, rejection is just part of the game, especially at a senior level. You're often pushing boundaries, proposing new and innovative solutions. It's not about whether you've been rejected, it's about how you react to it.
Right. Do you let it stop you? Or do you use it to come back even stronger? I guess interviewers are looking for someone who can handle feedback and turn those setbacks into learning experiences.
Exactly. You have to show that you're not just technically brilliant, but also emotionally intelligent. You can take feedback, even when it's tough, and use it to make your ideas and approach even better. Maybe you could share a story about a time you presented an idea and it was initially rejected. But then, after taking feedback and refining your pitch, you got everyone on board. That shows resilience, adaptability, and a willingness to learn and grow.
It's all about having that growth mindset, right? Knowing that even the best ideas can be improved, and that feedback is a crucial part of being creative.
Absolutely, and I think that connects to another question from the guide that's so relevant today. With technology changing so quickly, it asks, how do you make sure your skills and knowledge stay up to date?
Yeah, this one is all about showing that you're a lifelong learner, someone who's not just content with what they already know, but is always pushing themselves to stay ahead.
It's not enough to have a solid foundation. You need to show that you're actively looking for new information, experimenting with new tools, always expanding your skill set. It's about being proactive, not reactive.
So it's not just about going to a conference now and then or reading some industry blogs. It's about having a system, a plan for continuous learning. Maybe you'd talk about how you set aside time each week to explore new technologies, or how you regularly contribute to open source projects to keep your skills sharp and collaborate with others.
Right. And it's not just about knowing a little bit about a lot of things. It's also about having deep knowledge in specific areas. Maybe there's a particular area in your field that you're really passionate about, and you make a real effort to stay on top of the latest developments, attending workshops, maybe even publishing your own research. It's about showing that you're not just keeping up, you're leading the way.
You're the thought leader, the expert that others look to for guidance. As we're talking about all this, I'm realizing that preparing for a senior engineer interview is so much more than just knowing the technical stuff. It's about showing your leadership,
Hmm.
strategic thinking, passion for learning, and your ability to handle the challenges of an industry that's always changing.
It's about showing that you're not just a great engineer. You're a visionary leader who's ready to shape the future of technology.
And so, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. Go into those interviews confident, knowing that you've done the work, honed your skills, you're ready for whatever they throw at you.
Don't forget, the Indeed.com guide is a fantastic resource, so go back to it, dive deeper into any areas that really resonate with you. We've just scratched the surface here, but you've got this.
We believe in you. Go get them.